I got a message for Tennessee offensive lineman Trey Smith. Shut up! Hey everybody, I'm Marky Bilson, and the reason why I'm coming off like a Warner Brothers cartoon character right here is that after Tennessee's very disappointing 34-7 uh, football loss to the Kentucky Wildcats last Saturday, Trey Smith was quoted as saying, "I don't want anyone slandering Jared Guarantano, the Vols quarterback, who threw two pick sixes in the game." Look, I can appreciate standing up for a teammate. I really can. But saying that a quarterback should not be eyeballing his receivers to the tune of two pick sixes is not slander. It's fact. And frankly, it speaks of an environment in which, well, we're too good to be criticized by our fan base, which, by the way, in East Tennessee, where a lot of the media does very little other than wave pom-poms for the Tennessee Volunteers. I mean, I was in the Neyland Stadium press box last year for the Brigham Young game, and I was surprised, really, not shocked, but I was a little surprised to see, members of the media wearing Tennessee gear and all that. At West Virginia, they make an announcement: cheering in the press box will not be tolerated. At Tennessee, they're wearing their Tennessee baseball caps while covering the game. That shows you a little bit about the media in East Tennessee. They view themselves as extensions of the public relations department rather than as true journalists. And I got to tell you something, Trey Smith. If you're looking at someone defaming your quarterback, you got to look inside the program. You got to look to Jeremy Pruitt, because again, no one is slandering Jared Guarantano. Again, saying that he has played poorly the last 6 quarters or so. Yes, he has. That's not slander, it's fact. But I will tell you what is defamation, and that is a coach grabbing onto the face mask of his quarterback, or any player really, on the sideline, which of course Pruitt did to Guarantano last year against Alabama. Now, Guarantano went rogue on a quarterback sneak against the Crimson Tide. We all know what happened if you follow either football program last year. Pruitt was livid. He had a right to be livid. He did not have a right to take it physically, and he did not have a right to take it publicly. Or at least if he did take it publicly, he had to realize, as I'm sure he does now, that it opened up a Pandora's box. If you are the coach's whipping boy and you are physically being made out to be that, then you're going to be the program's whipping boy. The fans and the media are sure to follow. The moment that Pruitt grabbed on to Guarantano's face mask, Guarantano was done as the quarterback of the Tennessee Volunteers. He was not going to be able to be a figure that would be a sympathetic one. Let's put it that way. And so that was something that should have been done privately, the criticism, the chewing out, that sort of thing, certainly verbally. But the moment you made it physical, Guarantano was never going to be truly the man of Tennessee football. And so that's not the way to handle a quarterback. Now, the quarterback system for Tennessee, I think, and this is pure speculation, but it worked last year, the multi-quarterback system. Remember when Guarantano would come off the bench, taking advantage of his scrambling abilities, or at least the other team's defense had to recognize it when he would come off the bench against, say, Mississippi State and lead the Vols to victory. He played very well. And I think that that's what you're going to see with no true number one guy stepping up for Tennessee the rest of the way. Maybe a little bit of Harrison Bailey, maybe a little bit of JT Shroud. I still want to know what's going on with Brian Maurer. Is he redshirting? I thought everybody got an extra year of eligibility at this time. But Smith's comments, getting back to them, I got to really realize this guy might not be as good as advertised. I know the All-SEC. I know the top 20 players signing when he came to Tennessee. I know all of that. But then explain to me this. Why are the Tennessee Volunteers next to last in the SEC in sacks allowed. Might it have something to do, and you hate to bring this up, but it's legitimate criticism, it's not slander. Smith has had lung issues during his college football career. Could that be hampering his play as an offensive lineman now? And just suggesting that the team is above criticism. If you're saying, I don't want anyone slandering Jared Guarantano, what happens, Trey Smith, if you're drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles after this season? Do you really think you'll be able to withstand that fan base? Or any NFL fan base, for that matter? Vols fans notoriously supportive to the point sometimes of absurdity. You're not going to be able to withstand the NFL if you're making such comments. Now, the other big story coming from Knoxville this week. Jimmy Brumbaugh fired as defensive line coach of the Vols after only 4 games. It really does look like an act of desperation. Jeremy Pruitt's going to take over the defensive line. It is odd timing, but I do wonder this. Brumbaugh used to be the defensive line coach at Kentucky when Mark Stoops was starting out there. And could it be that the schemes and the lessons that he learned at Kentucky, he was now teaching the Tennessee defensive line, and therefore it was extremely easy for the Kentucky Wildcats to pick up on it? Did he not change his system up? Just a speculation out there. I asked the question. I will say that statistically, I don't think the Vols did all that poorly within the box against the Kentucky Wildcats. Wildcats only averaged just over 4 yards a carry, and they were sacked twice. So, was the defensive line really the reason for the loss? But there are these reports coming out saying that Brumbaugh and Pruitt didn't see eye to eye. Well, you'd think that if they had different defensive philosophies, that might have come out in the interview. I mean, it's 4 games. My goodness. So a buyout here, almost $800,000 for the Tennessee Volunteers. That goes down the drain and such. Asking what kind of a loss was Tracy Rocker. Obviously, Tracy Rocker, a bigger name than Brumbaugh will ever be. Rocker was a star at Auburn back in the 80s. He was drafted number 1 overall in the 1988 NFL draft. Didn't have much of an NFL career, but I will say this, his son Kumar Rocker at Vanderbilt is perhaps going to be the number 1 pick in the baseball draft next year. So it looks like, hey, at least father can lead son to greatness, and so you would wonder why he couldn't do that with his players on the gridiron. I would think he could. Going from Tennessee to South Carolina, that's a very curious move. It seems to be a lateral move at best. And although the Gamecocks were defeated by Tennessee in the season opener this year, let's look at these stats. Sacks. Okay, these stats. South Carolina, 2 more sacks than Tennessee this season. I'll get it out. And they're also allowing 25 yards fewer rushing this season than the Tennessee Volunteers per game through 4 games, both teams 2-2. Firing Brumbaugh, it just looks like an act of desperation. And the Vols with Alabama on the way, well, that means another loss and a 2-3 record. Florida's going to be a loss, that. Vanderbilt's going to be a win. So that would leave the Vols right there with 3 victories and 4 defeats. So then you look at the other 3 games left on the schedule, which are, of course, Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Auburn. You win all 3, you go 6-4. You lose them all, you have a losing record. You win 2 of them, then you're 500. One way or the other, it's a mediocre record, and that's not surprising because the Tennessee Volunteers right now really do look like a mediocre college football program. Oh, but they're headed in the right direction. Sure they are. How many people are going to say that if the record is only 6-4 this year? I'm Marky Billson.